You're listening to the Modern Mainframe, BMC's intelligent Z optimization and transformation podcast, covering the latest trends and issues on the mainframe and how BMC AIME and BMC Compuware Solutions can help you build a mainframe-inclusive DevOps toolchain. Hey everyone, welcome to the Modern Mainframe. I'm Matt Dallaire. Today we'll be discussing continuous improvement for software development teams and the metrics and technologies that help drive it, as well as what the future might hold as technologies like artificial intelligence and GPT continue to advance. Joining me today are a couple of Modern Mainframe veterans, BMC Lead Product Manager Spencer Hallman and DevOps Evangelist Tony Anter, as well as a special guest, BMC Vice President of Research and Development, David Jeffries. So Dave, Spencer, Tony, thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having us, Matt.
Thanks for the invite.
Thanks, Matt.
So Dave, you manage an organization of hundreds of developers and growing, spread around the globe, who develop software in fast-paced, intense delivery cycles. How do you manage enterprise software delivery, especially on such a scale? And what kind of metrics are important for you to ensure the productivity and efficiency of the team?
Okay, that's a good one, Matt. We just wing it. We're just going to see what happens. All right. And I'm sure people I've worked with before said, yeah, there's a level of truth in that, Dave. So, no, but in all seriousness, so the bottom line for us, and yeah, we do have a sizable development organization. And the bottom line for us is ultimately what it is we're creating and whether it's ready and fit for purpose at the ultimate kind of point, which is the consumer use. So we fundamentally, and I certainly fundamentally try to view what we do and try to view our optics and overall availability, continuous drive, continuous improvement, etc., as almost kind of one big button, one big kind of set of traffic lights, and that's whether what we've created or whether what we're creating is ready to ship. And to me, ready to ship is it's fit for purpose. It's going to do what it says on the tin. And fundamentally, it's fit for quality. And ultimately, stuff that we do from a mainframe perspective has got to be fit right from the outset. There's no second goes, second tries, etc. But having that one big set of traffic lights or one big kind of traffic light overall is not necessarily possible or necessarily doable. That kind of concept and that virtual kind of concept is made of a lot of things, all right? There's a lot of things that kind of go into the software pipeline and the software development process that we need to understand the various state of those things that ultimately will give us the conclusion as to whether we're red, amber, green, and ready to ship, etc. And so you can look at things like our overall delivery cadence, our overall delivery against time, our overall kind of mean time to resolution, the code volumes that we ship, the build successes, the build failures, the test successes, the test failures, the retries, various kind of characteristics of what is necessary to kind of create or support a development life cycle is what I would kind of always look at as being kind of the key indicators. And I think of no better way to ultimately kind of almost think of this, and then the analogy to me is a car, and is a dashboard, and is a dashboard in the car. I mean, you get into a car to go and do something, and ultimately it's to take you from A to B. But to go from A to B, you need a live set of metrics. So you need a live set of metrics of how far you're going, how far you still have to go, how much fuel you got in the tank, and the speed that you're going, and you don't need to know about all those at the end of your journey. You need to know those during your journey so you can adjust. I need to stop off for fuel, or I need to kind of do various things, speed up, slow down, or whatever. I think software development is just kind of like that, right? Because you're on a journey, you're trying to produce a set of capabilities that your customers are going to love and are going to delight your customers, and they can use and they can build their business on. But you need to get there through a set of common processes, a common route, shall we say, to be able to deliver that. I don't think that really is necessarily, we're not doing anything special from that perspective. I think, everybody does that type of stuff in the software development process. We all just look at probably different metrics at different times, how we can amalgamate those metrics, how we can make this as as smooth and as on demand as possible. All right. Tony, I mean, am I talking something that you guys don't necessarily see, or I'm not talking anything specific to BMC? It's software development, right?
No, I think you're hitting the same mantra I hear in the field in all the customers that I'm seeing. This is the nirvana state of what everybody wants to see. They want to be able to measure and understand where they started, a baseline, where they're at today, and then have a future state of where they want to go. And one of the things that I say consistently to customers and internally at BMC and wherever is, if you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. So companies have gone out and they've invested time, they've invested money, green dollars in improving their software developer experience, improving their software developer lifecycle, improving and measuring how or improving how these things are done. So management needs a consistent way to measure this. Teams need a consistent bar to say, this is how fast I'm going. Am I meeting my expectations? Am I not meeting my expectations? So I'm not hearing we're not doing anything different than what I'm hearing 100 other organizations talk about.
I think one of the interesting things that we have seen change over the last few years, obviously we've all moved from majority of us have moved from waterfall to kind of the agile process. As we kind of have made that journey, we need kind of those optics and we need those metrics and we need those kind of assessment points more frequently. What we've traditionally been used to is oh my gosh, I'll show my age here. Going back to things like foils, charts, those sorts of things, where ultimately we used to govern our success and our progress and our trajectory and our velocity through every certain period or so, weekly, bi-monthly, whatever it may be, status updates. And so you would go through that status process and you'd end up with, let's say you get a meeting every month on your quality cycles, etc. And you end up with a set of charts that you go, okay, yeah, everybody nods and shakes their heads or whatever they do. But reality is that material that you're making decisions on at that point in time could be 3 or 4 weeks old. And so I think one of the things that you're seeing certainly in industry is we're all trying to get faster. We're all trying to build software at the speed of the business. You're seeing much more of a desire to get to that dashboarding concept and to get to that space where I have a set of metrics. They're dynamically updating. They're on demand. It's not that I've got a team of people behind us kind of crafting charts and going crazy with PowerPoint and Excel. I've got a set of live metrics that govern the process or the progress of my development process, that govern or determine the process and progress around testing and building and this, that, and the other. Hey, I would love to get to a point, and gosh, my current team and my old team probably even remember me saying this. I would love, when we were all in the office, I would love TV screens around the labs to be able to say, everybody can kind of look up and go, all right, I caused a build break. Right, let me go fix the build break. And it's because we have that level of on-demand metrics and people can see their relevance in the overall process. So dashboarding to me is something that I'm really passionate about and I want to be able to get to because I think it helps us have a much more up-to-date understanding of where we are in the process and am I ready? Am I ready to ship or do I need to hold it back? Is my quality good enough? Is my cadence good enough? Is my capability and performance good enough and acceptable for us to kind of move that through to probably GA and then or service, ship fixes, etc. and beyond that. All right. So I think it's a big dynamic change.
I think something you hit on in there, Dave, that I want to go back to for a second too. I think there's a cultural difference today for those of us who have been in the industry a long time and go back to the days when you just sort of worked on your stuff in isolation and you kicked it over a wall and then, you hope nothing came back to you. Today, in every aspect of our lives, we have near real-time updates of everything. I can see if I'm downloading something onto my TV or my phone or whatever, I can see the update in real time. If I'm expecting an email, I can even get a real-time update of what's in my mailbox right now. right? And I think as a software development team, I think that cultural direction is where we're going. Everybody wants as near to real-time updates as they can possibly get. And I think we spend a lot of time too talking about the developer experience. And I think that these kind of metrics are an enhancement to the developer experience. They are an enhancement. It gives, to your point about the monitors and being able to see, for me, it gives me a sense of ownership. When I write some code and I'm putting that into the pipeline, and then I'm watching that get included in a release, and I'm watching that go out, I know that I was a part of that. I mean, I guess I always sort of know, but now through that dashboard, I'm seeing like a graphical picture of what that looks like and how that looks.
I think all of the metrics, as you start to pull them together, and look, let's face it, we've got more metrics up the gazoo, and the magic is being able to work out which ones affect the quality of my process, and which kind of bells and whistles can I adjust to affect kind of continuous improvement overall. Because in reality, we're all trying to get better. We're all trying to improve what we do. None of us are perfect. None of the processes we follow are perfect. If they were, we're done, right? And let's go off and go do something else. But we're trying to work out what are the metrics that make the most sense. We're trying to understand what are the areas that we can ultimately improve, because that's our jobs. That's why we're here, all right, to make things better, to build better solutions, to make it easier for our customers, and to build bigger value, better value, and better outcomes with the technology that we do and we use. Let me just kind of ask you then. I mean, continuous improvement, that's what obviously we look at, and is it very important to us. You've got that sense of, you go around all our customers, our clients, etc. You see what they do. Again, are we an anomaly here that we're the only ones doing this? I mean, what do you see out there in the rest of industry? What do you see around with your customers?
When I'm going around and I'm talking to different customers, we are definitely not an anomaly. We are definitely not alone in our I don't know, our quest to get these dashboards and metrics. Everyone is doing something. Everyone is trying to look at across the board, and this is not a mainframe thing either. This is distributed. This is mainframe. This is all across the board. Everyone is trying to put these dashboards together to show these metrics, to look at things like DORA to see, what's my quality, what's my velocity, what's my efficiency. A lot of people are trying to roll their own. A lot of people are trying to go out and build their own set of dashboards, pull their own metrics, cobble things together across multiple tools. And I think one of the things that we have was we started Z Advisor about 6 years ago, and that's a really good set of dashboards and metrics and things that we have that sort of compile all that data together for you, Dave, because I think you hit on something really, really profound. Is there's way more data than we have the ability to read or manage. So it's really separating the wheat from the chaff. It's separating what makes sense and what drives you towards your goal versus just data overload.
Yeah, so 6 years ago when we started on this Z Advisor journey, Z Advisor was the outgrowth of a service at CompuWare, now BMC, where we took customers' data and we showed them how they were using their tools. What we did with Z Advisor was we created KPIs to help them measure mainframe development with that. And initially, when we first started talking to them about creating metrics and KPIs to measure development, they kind of looked at us funny, like we were talking Greek. They didn't understand why would they want to do this. We made some pretty good headway through, I think, 2020, and we continue to make good headway, convincing people to measure mainframe development. But I don't get in front of the customers as much as I used to because of, the lockdowns and pandemics and all that stuff. But Tony, I know you're in front of customers a lot more. Are they more open to measuring, you have those side conversations with them. So like when you're in the meetings with them, they're all like, everyone's giving you the thumbs up and nodding their heads. But when you get the side conversations, they're like, oh, I don't think anyone will ever do this.
No, this is a differentiator in my mind, and this is something that everybody's doing. And it's not just on the mainframe side; it's on the distributed side of the shop. It's everywhere. I mean, operations wants this data. Needless to say, the application teams wants this data. The DevOps teams want this data. Everybody wants this data, and people today a lot of people are trying to build this themselves. They're trying to ship data. They're trying to take this, push it into Splunk, push it into Elk, push it into other platforms that munge this data for you, and then put these dashboards together. And I think one of the cool things we've done is we've taken a lot of that heavy lifting out, and we've created a set of pre-canned dashboards. Every time I show this, every time I talk to somebody about this, it's really what they're looking for. Everyone's talking about this now, and in the DevOps journey, once you enable it, then you have to start measuring it. Like I said at the very beginning, if you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. And everybody wants to see these measurements from a baseline point of view and from a continuous improvement point of view.
So with the homegrown solutions to it, are they getting real-time data, or are they kind of reviewing over a period of time? What's the time frame on the data that they're actually getting?
I think it's all of the above. I think it depends on how they set it up and what they're doing. Most of them there's typically a delay, but most of them are trying to get as real time as possible, just like what we were talking about at the beginning. The quicker you are to the actual event, the better.
When I've talked to some customers, what they've tried to do is take the tools they're using on the distributed side that create the metrics and the KPIs and sort of force fit them into the mainframe side. And the mainframe SCM is completely different than they're most likely using Git or some flavor of Git on the distributed side, and they're not getting the same data out of it, so they can't create the same metrics.
To Spencer's point, that once again makes the mainframe a black box versus being able to look at those system level metrics on the mainframe that you can use to, once you go into your mainframe and start deploying and going through your DevOps lifecycle, you can now see what's going on the mainframe, not what's on either side of it, which I think is unique.
As they gather these metrics, are there any that they might be missing, that they might not be thinking about, from what you've seen, Spencer, or you've seen, Tony or Dave, from customers measuring these things on their own? Is there anything that they might be missing that they're not, that just kind of slips through the cracks?
Yeah, what I've seen when I've talked to customers about this, a lot of times they don't even know what they should be measuring. So they don't know what metrics and what KPIs they should be measuring. They've just been told you need metrics, or you need KPIs, or you need to get your software out quicker.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, and I hear the same thing. Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
You make me smile here because I'm always minded of when I first started software development a number of years ago. There was all these jokes about let's have some metrics and let's just make sure that we can show a line going upwards. And that was it. That was like it was. I wouldn't say it was comical. It was. What are we? What do we really know the question that we're after? And I'm sure if you talk about KPIs, you're familiar with OKRs, all right? Objectives and key results. It was almost like kind of shifting KPIs to, as an organization, what are our objectives and key results, and how do we measure our progress? How do we measure success? And OKRs always used to be kind of fairly aggressive, and I won't say unobtainable, but they had to be stretched. They had to be out there to drive your organization in an improvement direction. But a lot of the challenge with setting things like OKRs were, what do we manage? What are we monitoring? What are we trying to look for? We have so much data flowing around that sometimes it's difficult to work out, well, what is the question I'm trying to answer with the data that I've got? And therefore it's very difficult to work out, well, do I need more data or do I need less data or whatever? And that's where I think we are starting to also see a shift is we need help on the questions that we need to ask of the data to allow us to pivot in the most effective way. And so to make the most effective course corrections, because we can course correct all over the place. All right. But unless it's going to get us to the end point of the journey quicker, or it's going to make us more effective that way, then it's a change. And you don't just make a change for change's sake. It's supposed to make you better. But I think we're starting to see a real shift now in terms of asking the right question. And we're getting some help. All right. I'm not sure at some point in time, we'll talk about AI and we'll talk about GPT and all those sorts of things. But there's something on the horizon that I think is going to help us ask the right question, and hopefully get the data back and get the insights back from the data that we've captured.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point, Dave, in that figuring out the question, what you're trying to measure, why you're trying to measure it, where you're trying to go, is more important than how you gather the data and where you get the data from. And maybe that sounds counterintuitive, but to your point, there's so much data, there's so many things, so many data points out there. What actually makes sense? What's actually going to drive me forward versus just end up noise? And I think coming to that conclusion is great. And I love the fact that we're talking about chat, we're talking about GPT, we're talking about AI, and I think that's only going to get better. So I can't wait to hear what the future holds when it comes to that.
Well, Spencer, as you were developing Z Advisor and as you continue to add dashboards and KPIs to it, how are you determining what to measure? Did you meet with customers about it? Like, how did you determine what should be there?
Yeah, when we first started this, we literally, there was a small group of us and we locked ourselves in a conference room, and we read a lot of books, and we came into that conference room and started writing down on a whiteboard what metrics people were already capturing and which ones did we think applied to the mainframe. And so we came up with about a dozen metrics that we thought would be, we didn't know whether we could capture them or create them or not, but we thought that this is our aspirational list of metrics that we think we should capture. And over the past 5 or 6 years, we've been able to, I think, satisfy about 11 of those 12 metrics. But it's a lot of reading. Gene Kim and Nicole Forsgren and Jez Humble wrote a great book called Accelerate.
Yep.
And in that they identified a host of metrics that you should be capturing and looking at, and out of that came the DORA metrics, known as the DORA 4. Deployment frequency, change failure rate, lead time for change, and mean time to restore service, which we now expose in Z Advisor. But they said those are the 4 that everybody should be capturing. If you're going to capture anything, those are the 4 that you should be capturing.
Yeah, and if you think about it, they came up with those 4 metrics. They didn't create those metrics and say this is what you should be measuring. They took a survey of a multitude of different companies across different industries and different perspectives and looked at what they were measuring. They independently looked at what data points were they using, what KPIs were they measuring. And what they found in their research was these 4 things were the most consistent across all of them. Almost every single one of those companies was measuring these 4 things. And I believe Mark Schettenhelm said this, this is one of the few times where you can steal. It's okay to steal. And I think stealing from people that have a successful model is perfectly fine in this instance, right? If someone's got a working model, use that as your baseline. I think Dave was alluding to this. Don't get into analysis paralysis. Start with something and then build it. Start with some kind of measuring stick and build that out so that then you can start measuring where you need to go. And to the point, we can tack as we need.
So Dave, you mentioned, and Tony and Spencer mentioned, artificial intelligence, ChatGPT. What are your thoughts, Dave, on leveraging cutting-edge technologies like artificial intelligence to get actionable insight on the efficiency and productivity of your team?
Well, I suppose I'll first say, if we ignore it at our peril. But the world's changing, and AI in the right application obviously is a wonderful thing. I think I go back to, and I'm incredibly impressed with things like ChatGPT and kind of how that's evolved, and the sheer power out of that. But I go back to the basics of I think sometimes we don't know the question to ask. We don't know whether to go left or right, etc. I'll continue the kind of the car analogy. And I think things like Chat GPT and generative AI gives us the ability to ask questions, true natural language questions in the way that we ask of a system, of an expert system. And I think we are starting to see, and we've played around with some of the Z Advisor work, obviously, and we've been looking at some of the stuff that we can do there and take it to the next level. And it is incredibly powerful as to not only can we ask it for new insights out of the data that we've got, but show me data in a different way. Show me your data in a way that I can consume it, and prepare reports for me and do all that type of stuff, which we know we still need ways to demonstrate and show and articulate why we're making changes. And I think AI has new insights. I think it helps us with the question. I think it helps us with whether we need to capture more information to get more accurate. But I think it helps us and has the potential to help us more on the journey around continual improvement, which again is what we're all after. All right, get better, smarter, faster, better quality, etc. And if AI can help us in that space, I'm all for it. Absolutely. What do the other guys think? Spencer, Tony?
Yeah, I think a lot of people talk AI, and they talk about this in the space and try to apply it. I think this is the perfect space to apply AI and those kind of learning algorithms, right? Because you have massive amounts of data that is coming in, massive amounts of data that you can use for predictive analytics. And this is exactly, in my mind, the kind of use cases that the people who were trying to do ChatGPT and a lot of the AI engines, this is what they were trying to get to. I think that AI, ChatGPT, all the different bots, I think this is the perfect space for them to exist in. You have massive amounts of data coming in that they can use for their predictive algorithms. And then at that point, then you start getting into not just near real-time analytics, you start getting into predictive analytics. Where do I foresee problems? Where do I foresee things? I'm seeing all this data coming in. Where do I see this, and how do I adjust before I get there, right? It's not just about my gas light comes on, to use the car analogy again. My gas light comes on and I got to pull into a station. If it only happens right when I run out of gas, I'm out of luck. I need to know ahead of time so I know where to go, where to pull in to get gas and fill up again. And I think that's the real power of AI in this space once it comes to fruition.
Tony, I think we're going to go through phases, all right? And so I think we're all trying to get to the point of where we trust it, and obviously it's all based on the data sets we use, etc., and kind of the data sources. I think from a development perspective, a software development perspective, I'm very willing to use it as an assist, okay, as a co-pilot, if I could kind of use that kind of phrase. And terminology, but I'm not necessarily ready to let it kind of run the process or to run the system.
Right.
It will evolve. We will get smarter with it. I want it to ask me. I want it to pose questions in my mind as well. I want it to kind of challenge me and to challenge what we do as a development organization. And I want it to find hidden insights in the data that we just can't find right now, or we can't see because of the vast amount of data that there is out there. And look, let's face it, we're just applying a mechanism and a capability to data, all right? And this is just an application in the code development space. It's also happening in fraud detection, it's happening in marketing, it's happening in every other area where you have a vast amount of data and you want to perform some intelligent analysis against it. So I'm very willing to kind of have this advise me, but ultimately kind of guide us and kind of co-pilot. See what I did there, Tony? All right, but guide us through that process.
That's a very subtle pun. Very subtle pun. I think you're absolutely right, and yeah, definitely. I think that this is something that will sit along with your operations person, sit along with your DevOps team, sit along with the people who are managing this, and to your point, provide them insights. It's not about turning the keys over and letting them drive the car quite yet. It's about giving someone the ability to munge that massive amount of data that's coming in and get some kind of predictive insights out of it. So I think that's an excellent point, Dave.
Well, I'm probably going to feed this podcast into it and see if it can improve on anything you guys have said.
Either that or me and Dave are going to be targeted for elimination. One of the two. One of the two.
So I'm gonna put everybody on the spot now and ask for any final thoughts. We'll start with Dave. Do you have any final thoughts on the subject?
Look, I think this whole space is evolving. I think we're bringing technology to the technology management space, which is kind of scary and kind of frightening. Whether you're in software development for enterprise level software or whether you're building an iPhone app or whatever, continuous improvement is what we're all trying to get better at. We're all trying to make our offerings better, better than the alternative, etc. And I think this is just a space that we're in, and we better get used to it. We better make the most of it, and let's use technology where it makes sense. But let's not use that as an alternative to using a bit of grey matter. We make smart decisions. We've got teams of engineers that we want to be the most effective, but ultimately, we want them to enjoy what they're doing. All right. And I'm always minded of Tony's comment to me, oh gosh, that we used about a year or so ago when he talked about his happy developers. Happy developers are productive developers, or whatever the overall phrase was.
Yeah, happy developers stay happy.
There you go. There you go.
All those things.
I want our development teams to be happy in terms of what they're doing, and actually, if we can take some of the metric management out of that and allow them to flourish and allow them to do their best possible work, they will create the best products. They will get the most qualitative products. Yes, absolutely. But that's when we'll delight our customers, and that's what it's all about.
Right. Tony, any last thoughts?
I think that. So I'll give my last thoughts from the perspective of the customers that I talk to and the people. Everyone out there is looking for this. Everyone out there is looking for KPIs, KROs. I believe Dave was the one Dave used. The operational metrics. Everyone out there is looking for a way to see, how am I doing? I need to be able to self-measure. How am I doing? How am I? And from an organizational point of view, all the way to a personal point of view, how am I doing? Am I being as efficient and as effective as I can be? And I think that the more we deliver into this space, the more value it's going to be to the developer, to the organization, to the company, to profitability, to management, to the business, to the IT leaders, to everybody. I think that this is a space that is only going to expand as you bring in new technology like AI. So I think that this is a really good time to be in this area and be looking at what I want to call, I'll call them operational metrics. I'm sure that's not the right way to phrase that term, but this is a great time to be in there because I think everyone's trying to do this in one form or fashion or another. And the more we can assist them as a technology company, the better.
Spencer?
Yeah, I guess my final thoughts would be trust but verify, right? AI is new. I think metrics is more mature. We can trust the metrics, but what the AI is telling us, we need to verify what it's telling us to do is correct, and what it's calculating and everything that it's spitting back to us is reasonable. My experience has been that sometimes it hallucinates. It starts telling you different things, like ask it to calculate an average, and the average was clearly wrong. And then I told it that, and it came back and said, "Oh, thank you for letting me know." And then it calculated it correctly. But it's trust but verify. We're in the early days of this AI and Chat GPT and these generative AI, and we need to make sure that it's giving us sound advice and that it's correct advice and that it's going to move the organization forward.
I'm getting a signal here. We have a bonus round. Tony, you brought something up that I think was pretty interesting. The difference, or the different ways these metrics can be used to help not only the organization as a whole or the team as a whole, but individual developers. Can you speak to that?
If I'm going to have a team, and I'm a team of 12 individuals, but all those 12 individuals have to be rowing in the same direction. They have to be moving in the same way. Read any management book, read any leadership book, read any team book, read Jocko Willing's book about team leadership. it's all gonna tell you the same thing. Everybody has to be moving in the same direction. Everybody has to be swimming in the same direction, has to be paddling the boat in the same direction to be effective, to be as good as you can be. And the simple fact of the matter is 12 ordinary people operating together doing the same thing are going to beat 12 excellent people, each one doing their own thing. That's been proven time and again. And the point I'm trying to get at with that is, when we're talking about software development, these kind of metrics, these kind of dashboards are going to show you as a team, how are you moving forward? How are you pushing? How are you as a group doing? And that aligns everybody to that single direction, to that single path, to that single release, to that single deployment. It's pushing everybody in there. So me as an individual contributor, from my experience, if I'm able to see that pipeline and that dashboard and how these releases are going out, then I know I'm moving in the right direction, right? It's showing all of us individually how we're doing as a group, and it aligns the group around that common goal. I know that probably sounds a little bit like a cat poster, but that's how I look at it, and that's how I look at team management.
Tony, I'm not sure about the cat poster, but what you just articulated there is, I go back to the vision of the one dashboard that you could see if we were all back in the office, and you see it in the corridors, and every part of your team understands their relevance in that pipeline.
Right.
They understand their relevance in the contribution of the ultimate success, which is the ultimate GA or the deployment or whatever it may be. So the more you can kind of bring this together in a unified way, the more you can kind of use it to demonstrate the relevance of the team of 12.
Right.
Yeah. People need to know their position in the big picture, how they fit into the big picture. Yeah.
How am I contributing?
Exactly. And if I'm not, what am I breaking? What do I need to go fix?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, this has been a great conversation. Certainly covered a lot. Dave, Spencer, Tony, thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you, man.
You are very welcome.
Thanks, Matt.
I'll provide some links in the show notes for more information. Thank you to everyone listening. We'll talk to you next time on The Modern Mainframe.
You're listening to The Modern Mainframe, BMC's intelligent Z optimization and transformation podcast, covering the latest trends and issues on the mainframe and how BMC AIME and BMC CompuWare Solutions can help you build a mainframe-inclusive DevOps toolchain.